Hi Gemini, welcome to your end of August 2020 General Tarot Update. It's Raina here. Whew, it is humid. It is really humid. And there is a train. I just saw, oh no, that isn't the last car, but I could just hear some metallic sounds out there, but hopefully you can't hear that. It seems like it's creeping along very, very slowly. Alrighty then. And I'm using, I created a tarot spread for this particular series that I'm using just to mix things up a little bit. Nothing too different than, see now, because of this angle, I just want you to at least see, at least you can see what is on this table. Okay. The heart of the matter for this last half of the month is the Hierophant. This is a card that is associated with Taurus, but I always say it should be Sagittarius, and I've said this before, that I have this tarot book that I don't even know where it is, but it had like all these different connections with the tarot and astrology and what it represents. And then they had these people who were so-called experts in tarot and what they thought it should be connected to, and they weren't all in agreement. And I found one person who said the Hierophant should be Sagittarius, because this is kind of like a religious figure, and this does connect to religious matters, which is Sagittarius's domain. And you could even say like higher learning. So how can this be Taurus? Taurus has nothing to do with that. But it's also the card of tradition. And it's a card of marriage. So with some of these other cards, you could see that it might be to do with a relationship. But in general, the issue can come up of, do I want to be in this situation because it is considered respectable by other people, or do I feel like my soul is yearning to be free? And looking at religious doctrine, maybe conditioning, upbringing, whatever you want to call it. I even look at the Hierophant as it relates to corporate types of jobs. And for somebody like Gemini, that's not going to sit well with you, but that doesn't mean that you're not in that line of work. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if people with prominent Gemini gravitate towards corporate types of jobs, because I have no clue what those kinds of careers entail, but I'm assuming that being a great salesperson, a speaker, making presentations is part of the deal. So you guys would be able to do that really well. But it might be something where your conscience is tugging at you. You don't like what you're selling. You don't like the corporation that you work for. And this is, I think that nowadays this is particularly an issue because people are looking at ethics a lot and not just conforming to something or just from the money, or just the corporate culture. So if you're being asked to dress a certain way, nothing crazy, but just too conservative for you, too traditional, and you feel like a little bit left out in the cold. The past influence is the Ace of Cups. So this is something that has a more spiritual nature, maybe something, oh look, there's a lotus. And the lotus symbolizes purity. I think that's a lotus. The lotus can grow in mud, and its leaves remain pure. And so it can be a situation where you're beginning something in your life that has more meaning for you, and you don't like the idea of, and maybe you've kind of started it because of the environment that you are in. Now, another thing, so that could even be like a healing arts career or creative endeavor. If this is a relationship related thing, you may have met somebody that you feel a strong emotional connection to, and that would be what the Ace of Cups is about. We're not talking about like an affair or being attracted to them physically, even though you might be, but it's really mainly like soul mate, or just the emotions are being stirred up. And the Hierophant is this thing of saying, do I have to stay married? Is it considered a sin to get divorced? Am I a bad person? It can be like if you've fallen in love with somebody, maybe they want to be married and you're kind of pulling back. And that can make it so that other person, if that's a deal breaker for the other person, then you could be left out in the cold altogether. The lesson that you could be learning with this situation is represented by the Three of Swords, which is a card of, in some cases, this is a lover's triangle. It can be a feeling of rejection in some way, or that you need to cut something off very decisively because you know what the truth is. You know that how you feel about something, and you don't need any kind of more time to gain clarity. You might already have been stalling on something. And so basically what I'm trying to say here, for instance, if you have fallen in love with someone new and the Hierophant is representing a marriage, and you feel like this is something that you can't mess with, or maybe you feel guilty about it for some reason, the Three of Swords could be saying you already have had your heart torn into shreds by this person. So it was only natural that, since they rejected you in some way, that you would be open for somebody new to come in. Not that you were looking to find anybody, but you were yearning for that kind of emotional connection. And obviously, if this is literally what's going on with you and you are, for instance, married or living with somebody, it's not a good idea to maintain an outside relationship because it complicates your life. If you're lying to your, significant other, that's not living in integrity, So those things aren't a good idea. But on the other hand, being able to make that comparison between what you have with a current partner and what the potential is can be like mind-blowing. If this is connected to some kind of job offer that has an artistic or healing theme to it, the Three of Swords can be about just cutting ties with your current employer very definitively. You may be tempted to work part-time or do something else, but if you have a negative environment that is very stifling, with the Hierophant, as I stated, this can be that everything is very traditional and there are certain parameters that you have to take note of, and you might feel like you're kind of boxed in, then you, by still maintaining contact with this employer, you put yourself in the position of still being influenced by it. And sometimes people think that if they do something part-time, they're not going to feel the effects. And that may not be true. I don't tell people what to do. I would never say to somebody, quit your job just, tomorrow and don't look back, because there sometimes are extenuating circumstances, and it's easy for me to say something, but I would never tell somebody that. This is for those people who have been going back and forth in their mind and who may have financial security. Maybe they've already planned for this, or they have a spouse who makes enough to support both of the people while you're going through a transition. And it may create an environment that is more conducive for you to do your work, because empaths sometimes have a hard time being in with other people a lot. So, I mean, it's kind of like I'm looking at it from that perspective. What is coming in is represented by the Tower card. And this is, it's funny because now I realize too that Gemini, you are going to be subjected to eclipses in the next year plus, with your sign Gemini and your opposite sign Sagittarius. And so the Tower card can be one of those eclipses that is happening. There's like a full moon, a lunar eclipse, and that one is going to be in your sign, but that is when the sun is in the opposite sign in Sagittarius. So that will be affecting your 7th house, and then a solar eclipse that is in Sagittarius in that 7th house. The Gemini eclipse is November 30th, and then the solar eclipse on December 14th. And so even if you, let's say you're married or you're living with somebody and you do nothing between now and the end of the year, there could still be some pressure that builds, and the Tower can be like the universe, ending things. And if that is the case, if that's what happens, then it's really for the best. And you might walk away feeling like, okay, good, now I can move on with my life. So however that would pan out, they say that when we start to raise our vibration, either we're knowingly doing this by certain exercises, or it's just happening because there's a certain phase that we're going through that is like a spiritual awakening, which actually with, the North Node in your sign, Gemini, this may be that for you. And you also have the Capricorn energy in the 8th house where there's a lot going on. Pluto is there, and that may be one of the big catalysts for you. But also Saturn has gone back into Capricorn. But this can be a period of great growth. Jupiter is in that 8th house too. And Jupiter can give quite a benevolent influence in a very heavy house with heavy themes. So the Tower can be more of a like a freedom, something that frees you from a situation that you don't know how to get out of. And so if you are having an affair and that affair is found out, then it clears the air. You may be like, well, I don't want to hurt my partner. That's the last thing I want to do. And not realizing that if you remain in a situation with somebody where you don't love them, and you don't feel like you have things in common anymore, that prevents the other person from finding the person that's meant for them. So you're actually doing someone a favor by letting them go and letting them find the person that's right for them. But the Tower card might exist regardless of whether you are open about this or not, because the eclipses are just doing their thing. It's not even about if you are initiating anything. They're just like changing these areas of your life. The house of the self and the house of the other. And the outcome is the Nine of Cups. This can be a time when you feel that things are that you feel kind of anxious because change, I was just thinking about this the other day, about, thinking of a time in my life where I felt like I don't know if it was a spiritual upgrade. It didn't feel like that at the time. It felt very frightening, quite frankly. And I was 23 years old. And the thing is that, it depends on what stage of life you're in. Gemini tends to be kind of the free spirit and open to anything. So you may not feel like you're afraid of change. And yet this might be for certain Geminis who have a lot of inner planets in Taurus or something like that. Maybe the moon in Scorpio or what have you. So let me pick an additional card. Okay, the Five of Wands is can be a card of conflict, of perhaps competition of some sort, and perhaps you have to be able to risk upsetting somebody else, like whether it's an employer or anybody who, like if this is a current partner, because there's something that is making you anxious in all of this change. And with the Five of Wands, you may have to initiate and fight for your freedom, because nobody's going to give it to you just on a golden platter or silver platter, isn't it? And that's because they may have their own agendas that they may benefit from you still being in that job or still being in that relationship. So you have to do you at the end of the day, Gemini. And I don't know if any of this resonates with you, but I hope it does. And if you would like a personal reading, I do a lot of astrology. But I do have an offer right now of a full-length natal chart interpretation with the transits. Some of the important transits are coming up in the next 12 months, along with a full-length tarot reading called the Whole Enchilada. And you can find more details about that reading and other readings I offer at rainandmoonastrology.com. The link is below. Thank you for watching. Take care. Bye.